Princess Aranel stood before the grand mirror in her chamber, staring at her reflection with empty eyes. The silver markings on her skin glowed softly in the dim light, a sign of her royal blood. Her long white hair fell past her shoulders like a waterfall of moonlight. To anyone watching, she looked like the perfect Valtherian princess, beautiful, elegant, royal. But she knew the truth. In the eyes of her people, she was worthless. The door to her chamber opened without warning. Lord Vexmar entered with that cruel smile she had come to hate. He was tall, even for a Valtherian, with sharp features and cold eyes that never showed mercy. "Princess," he said, his voice dripping with false respect, "the council has made a decision about your future." Aranel turned to face him. She kept her face calm, showing no emotion. Years of shame had taught her to hide her pain well. "What decision?" "We have arranged a diplomatic marriage for you," Vexmar said. He walked closer, his smile growing wider. "With the humans." Aranel felt her blood turn cold. The humans. The new species that had just made contact with the galactic community. Everyone in the Empire talked about them. They were primitive. They had barely left their own solar system. Their technology was thousands of years behind Valtherian science. "The humans?" she repeated, keeping her voice steady. "Yes," Vexmar said. He circled around her like a predator. "Earth has requested a cultural exchange. They want to build good relations with our empire." The council decided to honor their request with a marriage alliance. Aranel understood immediately. This was not an honor. This was the final insult. They were sending her, the infertile princess, to mate with a species that everyone saw as inferior. When she failed to produce an heir with the human, they could say they tried. They could blame the humans. Or they could blame her again, as they always did. "When?" she asked quietly. "In 3 days," Vexmar replied. "You will travel to their deep space station. It is called Sejong, named after some ancient human king. You will meet your human mate there. Does he know?" Aranel asked. "Does the human know what I am?" Vexmar laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound.
"Why would we tell them?"
"Let the primitive creature discover on his own that his princess bride is broken. It will be amusing to watch." After Vexmar left, Aranel sat on her bed and stared at the wall. Broken. That was the word they always used. She had heard it whispered in the halls since she was young. The doctors had tried everything. They used advanced medicine. They tried genetic therapy. They even attempted experimental procedures that left her in pain for months. Nothing worked. Her body simply could not create life. In Valtherian society, that made her nothing. Royal blood meant nothing without children to pass it to. Beauty meant nothing without fertility. Intelligence meant nothing when you could not continue the family line. She thought about running away. But where would she go? Every planet in the Empire knew her face. Every noble family knew her shame. At least with the humans, she would be far from home, far from the whispers and the pitying looks. On the other side of the galaxy, Taeyang received the message in his small quarters on Station Sejong. He read it 3 times, certain he had misunderstood. "A marriage alliance?" he said aloud to the empty room. "With a Valtherian princess?" He was just an engineer. He had volunteered for the deep space program because he loved working with new technology. He had helped build this station with his own hands. He was good at fixing things, solving problems, making connections between different systems. But a diplomatic marriage? That seemed like something for politicians or military officers, not a regular guy from Seoul who just wanted to build bridges between stars. His communication device buzzed. It was Ambassador Suhyuk calling from Earth. "Taeyang." The ambassador's face appeared on the screen. He looked serious. "I assume you received the message." "Yes, sir," Taeyang said. "But I don't understand why me." "The Valtherians requested someone who represents human values," Suhyuk explained. "Someone kind, hard-working, and genuinely interested in building good relations with other species. Your name came up in every discussion." "But marriage?" Taeyang ran his hand through his black hair. "That is very serious." "It is," Suhyuk agreed. "And you can refuse. No one will force you. But this is a great honor, Taeyang. The Valtherians are the most powerful empire in the galaxy. If this alliance succeeds, it could open doors for all of humanity." Taeyang thought about his family back on Earth, his mother, who always taught him to be kind to everyone. His sister Minji, who worked as a teacher and believed that understanding between different people was the most important thing in the world. "What is she like?" he asked. "The princess? Her name is Aranel," Suyuk said. "She is young, intelligent, and by all accounts very beautiful. Beyond that, we know very little. The Valtherians are very private about their royal family." Taeyang looked out the window of his quarters at the stars. When he was a child, he dreamed of exploring space. He dreamed of meeting alien species and learning about their cultures. He never imagined it would happen like this. "I will do it," he said finally. "If it helps humanity build a better relationship with the Valtherians, I will do it." Suyuk smiled. "I am proud of you, Taeyang. The princess arrives in 3 days. We will prepare everything." After the call ended, Taeyang sat in silence. He wondered what this princess would be like. Would she be cold and distant like the few Valtherians he had met? Would she look down on him for being human? Would she even want this marriage, or was she being forced too? He decided to approach it the same way he approached everything else in his life. With an open mind and a willing heart, maybe they could make it work. Maybe they could at least become friends. He had no idea that across the galaxy, Princess Aranel was thinking similar thoughts. She did not hope for love. She had given up on that long ago. But maybe, just maybe, this human would not treat her like she was broken. Maybe he would not know enough about Valtherian culture to understand what her infertility meant. Maybe with this primitive species she could pretend to be normal for a little while. Neither of them knew that their meeting would change not just their own lives, but the future of 2 entire civilizations. Neither of them knew that what started as a cruel joke would become the greatest love story the galaxy had ever seen. All they knew was that in 3 days their lives would change forever. The Valtherian ship docked at Station Sejong with barely a sound. Taeyang stood in the arrival bay with Ambassador Suhyuk and a small group of human diplomats. His heart pounded in his chest. He had barely slept in 3 days, too nervous about meeting his future wife. When the airlock opened, Princess Aranel stepped through. Taeyang forgot to breathe for a moment. She was stunning. Her silver skin seemed to glow under the station lights. Her white hair moved like silk with each step. Her eyes were a deep purple color he had never seen before. She wore elegant robes that looked like they were made from starlight itself. But what struck him most was her expression. She looked cold, distant, like she was carved from ice. "Princess Aranel," Ambassador Suyuk said with a deep bow. "Welcome to Station Sejong. We are honored by your presence." Aranel nodded slightly. Her eyes swept over the humans with barely concealed disdain. When her gaze landed on Taeyang, she paused for just a moment. Then she looked away. "This is Taeyang," Suhyuk continued, gesturing toward him. "Your intended husband." Taeyang stepped forward and bowed, copying what Suhyuk had done. "It is an honor to meet you, Princess." "Is it?" Aranel said coldly. Her voice was beautiful, musical even, but it held no warmth. "Let us not pretend this is anything other than what it is." The words stung, but Taeyang kept his face calm. "May I show you to your quarters?" he offered. "You must be tired from your journey." Aranel looked at him with surprise, as if she had not expected basic courtesy. "Very well," she said. The walk to her quarters was silent and awkward. Taeyang tried several times to start a conversation, but Aranel answered every question with just 1 or 2 words. Finally, they reached the rooms that had been prepared for her. "These are your quarters," Taeyang said. "If you need anything, just use the communication panel. I am in the room 2 doors down." Aranel looked around the space. The humans had tried their best to make it comfortable, but it was clearly plain compared to what she was used to. "2 doors down," she said. "Not the same room? I thought you might want privacy," Taeyang said simply. "We can take time to know each other first." For the first time, something changed in Aranel's expression. The ice cracked just a little. "You are not demanding your rights as a husband?" "Rights?" Taeyang looked confused. "You are a person, not a possession. I thought we could be friends first, maybe. If you want." Aranel stared at him for a long moment. "You really are primitive," she said, but her voice was less harsh than before. "Fine, leave me now. I need rest." Taeyang bowed again and left. As he walked back to his own quarters, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. The next few weeks were difficult. Aranel kept to herself most of the time. When they did meet for formal dinners or diplomatic functions, she was polite but cold. She made it clear she thought human culture was inferior. She complained about the food. She criticized the station's technology. She corrected Taeyang's attempts to speak her language with barely hidden contempt, but Taeyang did not give up. He had made a promise to try, and he always kept his promises. He started leaving small gifts outside her door. Nothing expensive or fancy, just little things. A flower from the station's hydroponics garden, a book about Earth's history, a music player loaded with songs from different human cultures. At first, Aranel ignored them. But slowly, Taeyang noticed the gifts disappearing. She was taking them inside. One evening, he knocked on her door carrying a tray of food. When she answered, she looked annoyed. "What do you want?" "I made dinner," Taeyang said with a smile. "Korean food for my home. I thought you might be tired of the station cafeteria." "I am tired of all human food," Aranel said. But she did not close the door. "Just try it," Taeyang said. "If you hate it, I will leave you alone." Aranel sighed and let him in. They sat at the small table in her quarters. Taeyang had made kimchi stew, rice, and several side dishes. He explained each one as he served it. Aranel took a small bite of the stew. Her eyes widened slightly. "This is spicy," she said. "Too much?" Taeyang asked, concerned. "No," Aranel said quietly. "It is interesting, different from anything I have tasted before." They ate in silence for a while. Then Aranel spoke again. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" Taeyang asked. "Being kind to me," she said. "You must know this marriage is a joke. You must know what I am." Taeyang set down his spoon. "I know you are a princess from a powerful empire. I know you are intelligent and beautiful. I know you seem very sad. That is all I know. You do not know why they sent me to you?" Aranel's voice trembled slightly. "No," Taeyang admitted. "Will you tell me?" Aranel was quiet for a long time. Then slowly she began to speak. She told him about her infertility, about the years of failed treatments, about how Valtharian society valued bloodlines above everything else, about how she was seen as worthless, broken, a shame to her family. "Lord Vexmar and the council sent me here as a final insult," she said bitterly. "To the primitive humans. When I fail to give you children, they can mock both of us. You for being human, me for being defective." Taeyang listened to everything without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he spoke. "My sister Minji chose not to have children," he said. "She decided when she was young that she wanted to focus on teaching other people's children instead. Our parents were disappointed at first. In Korean culture, family is very important. Continuing the family line matters." "Then you understand," Aranel said. "No," Taeyang said gently. "You misunderstand. Yes, our parents were disappointed at first, but Minji lived her life the way she wanted. She became an amazing teacher. She helps hundreds of children every year. She is happy. And now our parents see that her worth has nothing to do with whether she has children. She is valuable because of who she is, not what her body can do." Aranel looked at him with confusion. "But the family line will continue or it will not," Taeyang shrugged. "That is not what makes a person important. Aranel, you are intelligent. You know quantum mathematics better than any human I have met. You speak 6 languages. You understand complex political systems. You are more than your ability to have children." Tears formed in Aranel's purple eyes. She wiped them away quickly as if ashamed. "You really believe that?" "Yes," Taeyang said simply. "I volunteered for this assignment, you know. I was not forced. I wanted to build a bridge between our species. Maybe we can start by being friends. No pressure. No expectations. Just 2 people getting to know each other." Aranel looked down at her hands. "I do not know how to be friends with someone who does not want something from me." "Then we will learn together." Taeyang smiled. "I have never been friends with an alien princess before either." For the first time since arriving at the station, Aranel smiled. It was small and uncertain, but it was real. "You are very strange, Taeyang." "I get that a lot," he laughed. From that night on, things changed between them. Aranel started leaving her quarters more. She joined Taeyang in the observation deck where they watched the stars together. She taught him about Valtharian science and history. He taught her about human culture and showed her Earth movies. They started eating meals together regularly. Taeyang cooked different dishes from his home, and Aranel slowly developed a taste for human food. She particularly liked the spicy dishes, which surprised her. One evening, Taeyang was trying to pronounce a Valtharian phrase she had taught him. He got it completely wrong, making a sound like a dying animal. Aranel laughed. It was the first time Taeyang had heard her laugh, and the sound was like music. "That was terrible," she said, still laughing. You just said that my feet smell like old cheese. That is not what you taught me to say. Taeyang protested, laughing too. No, you were supposed to say that the stars are beautiful tonight, RNL explained. But you got the tones completely wrong. They both laughed together. In that moment, the walls between them crumbled a little more. Slowly, carefully, something was growing between them, not the formal diplomatic alliance that their governments wanted. Something more real. Something neither of them had expected. Something that looked a lot like friendship. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something more. 6 months had passed since RNL arrived at Station Sejong. The cold, bitter princess who stepped off that Valtherian ship was gone. In her place was someone softer, warmer, more alive. She woke up each morning actually looking forward to the day. She met Taeyang for breakfast in the small cafeteria. They worked together in the station's research labs, where she helped human scientists understand advanced Valtherian technology. In the evenings, they watched the stars or talked for hours about everything and nothing. Somewhere along the way, friendship had turned into something deeper. Neither of them talked about it directly. It just happened naturally, like flowers blooming in spring. One evening, Taeyang took her to the observation deck. He had set up a small picnic with human food and drinks. Candles floated in the low gravity, creating a soft light. What is this? RNL asked, surprised. A date, Taeyang said, suddenly nervous. I mean, if you want it to be. We have been spending so much time together, and I care about you, RNL, more than just as a friend. RNL felt her heart beat faster. In the past 6 months, she had felt herself falling for this strange, kind human. But she was afraid. Afraid that he was just being nice. Afraid that he would eventually see her the way other Valtherians did. I care about you too, she said quietly. But Taeyang, you know what I am. You know I cannot give you children. Humans value family. I have seen how you talk about your mother and sister. You would be a wonderful father, but I cannot. Taeyang took her hands gently. RNL, I did not fall in love with your ability to have children. I fell in love with you. Your intelligence. Your humor. The way you wrinkle your nose when you are concentrating. The way you get excited about quantum equations. The way you are kind to everyone on this station, even though you once thought humans were primitive. You love me? RNL's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Taeyang said simply. I love you. And if we never have children, that is fine. We can adopt. Or we can just be together. Just us. I do not need anything except you. RNL kissed him then. It was her first kiss and it felt like coming home. They were married 2 months later in a small ceremony on the station. Ambassador Suhyuk performed the service. The few humans on the station attended, along with 2 Valtherian diplomats who had become friendly with RNL. When the news reached Valteria Prime, Lord Vexmar laughed. Let them have their little fantasy, he told the council. When she fails to produce an heir, the joke will be complete. But on Station Sejong, RNL was happy for the first time in her life. She did not think about children or duty or bloodlines. She just enjoyed being with her husband. Dr. Hee-jin, the station's medical officer, became close friends with RNL. Hee-jin was a geneticist who had volunteered for the space program to study alien biology. She was curious, kind, and never judged anyone. One afternoon, RNL was helping Hee-jin in the medical lab. They were comparing Valtherian and human genetic structures. This is fascinating, Hee-jin said, looking at her screens. Human DNA is so adaptable. We can eat almost anything. We survive in extreme conditions. Our immune systems learn and adapt quickly. Valtherians are more stable, RNL said. Our genetics do not change easily. It makes us stronger in some ways, but also less flexible. Hee-jin pulled up another screen. That stability might be why some Valtherians have fertility issues. Your genetic code is so precise that even tiny errors can cause problems. Humans are messier, but that messiness makes us more adaptable. RNL looked at the screens with growing interest. What are you saying? I am saying that human reproduction is different from Valtherian reproduction, Hee-jin explained. We have studied 17 different alien species since making contact with the galactic community. Humans can produce viable offspring with 14 of them. That is unprecedented. 14? RNL was shocked. But that is impossible. Different species cannot interbreed. Usually no, Hee-jin agreed. But humans are weird. Our genetic material has something called adaptive proteins. They help our DNA communicate with other genetic codes. It is like having a universal translator built into our cells. RNL felt her heart start beating faster. Have you tested this with Valtherian genetics? Not extensively, Hyejin admitted. We have not had reason to. Why? RNL hesitated. Then she made a decision. Because I want to know if there is any chance I could have a child with Taeyang. Hyejin looked at her friend with surprise and compassion. RNL, even if human Valtherian reproduction is theoretically possible, your specific condition— I know, RNL interrupted. I know the chances are almost zero, but almost zero is not the same as impossible. Will you help me check? Hyejin nodded. Of course. Let me run some tests. Over the next few weeks, Hyejin studied everything she could about Valtherian reproduction and RNL's medical history. She compared it with human genetics. She ran simulations and experiments. What she found shocked her. RNL, you need to see this. Hyejin called her to the lab one evening. RNL rushed over, her heart pounding. What did you find? Your infertility is caused by something called a genetic lock, Hyejin explained, pulling up complex diagrams. Your DNA has a sequence that prevents certain reproductive proteins from forming. Valtherian medicine cannot break this lock because their genetic therapy is too precise. It is like trying to pick a lock with a sledgehammer. I know all this, RNL said impatiently. What does it have to do with humans? Everything, Hyejin said with excitement. Human genetic material works differently. Those adaptive proteins I mentioned, they do not try to force changes. They work around problems. They find alternative pathways. In theory, human reproductive proteins might bypass your genetic lock entirely. RNL stared at the screens, afraid to hope. In theory? The only way to know for sure is to try, Hyejin said gently. But RNL, please understand. Even with this possibility, the chances are still very small. I do not want you to get your hopes up. I gave up hope years ago, RNL said quietly. But if there is even a tiny chance, I want to try. Not for duty or bloodlines or politics. I want to try because Taeyang would be an amazing father. Because a child made from both of us would be a symbol of everything we have built together. Have you talked to Taeyang about this? Hyejin asked. Not yet, RNL admitted. I do not want to burden him with my hope if nothing comes of it. But that night RNL could not keep it to herself. She told Taeyang everything Hyejin had discovered. She explained the theory about human adaptive proteins and genetic locks. So there might be a chance? Taeyang asked carefully. A very small chance, RNL said. Hyejin says we should not expect anything, but I wanted you to know. If you want to try, we can try. If you do not want to risk the disappointment, I understand completely. Taeyang pulled her into a hug. Of course we will try, he said softly. Not because I need a child to be happy, but because I can see how much this means to you. And who knows, maybe humans and Valtherians are more compatible than anyone thought. Unknown to them, Valtherian intelligence had been monitoring Station Sejong. Spies had intercepted Hyejin's research. When the report reached Valteria Prime, it caused confusion in the council chambers. Could this be real? One council member asked. Could the princess actually conceive with a human? Impossible, Lord Vexmar declared. The best Valtherian doctors failed to treat her. These primitive humans know nothing. But privately, Vexmar was worried. If the impossible happened, his carefully planned joke would backfire spectacularly. He sent orders to his spies to monitor the situation closely and report any developments immediately. On Station Sejong, RNL and Taeyang tried to live normally. They did not obsess over possibilities or count days. They just enjoyed being together as they always had. But in her quiet moments, RNL allowed herself to hope. For the first time in years, she imagined a future where she was not broken, where she could give her husband the family he deserved, where she could prove to everyone who had mocked her that she was not worthless. She did not know yet that her hope would be rewarded. She did not know that human adaptability was about to prove itself in the most spectacular way possible. She only knew that for the first time in her life, she was truly, completely happy. Whatever came next, she would face it with Taeyang by her side. 8 months had passed since Hyejin presented her theory about human Valtherian compatibility. Life on Station Sejong had settled into a comfortable routine. RNL worked in the research labs during the day. Taeyang maintained the station's systems. They spent their evenings together, talking, laughing, simply enjoying each other's company. Neither of them talked much about the possibility of children anymore. It felt safer not to hope too much. Disappointment hurt less when you expected nothing. Then one morning, RNL woke up feeling strange. She felt dizzy and sick to her stomach. At first, she thought she had eaten something bad. Human food still occasionally disagreed with her Valtherian digestive system, but the sickness continued for 3 days. On the 4th day, she fainted while working in the lab. Taeyang rushed her to the medical bay, his face pale with worry. "Heejin, please," he said desperately. Something is wrong with her. Dr. Heejin ran a full scan while Aranel lay on the medical bed still weak and dizzy. Heejin checked the readings once, then twice, then 3 times. Her hands started shaking. "What is it?" Taeyang demanded. "What is wrong with her?" Heejin turned to them with tears in her eyes. "Nothing is wrong," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Aranel, you are pregnant." The room fell silent. Aranel stared at Heejin in shock. "That is impossible," she whispered. "I ran the scan 3 times, Heejin said. "It is accurate. You are approximately 8 weeks pregnant. The embryo is healthy and developing normally." Aranel started crying. Taeyang held her as she sobbed, his own eyes wet with tears. Years of pain and shame poured out of her. Years of being called broken and worthless. All those doctors who said she would never have a child. All the pitying looks and whispered insults. They were all wrong. "How?" Aranel asked through her tears. "How is this possible?" "Exactly the way we theorized," Heejin explained gently. "Human adaptive proteins bypassed your genetic lock. Taeyang's genetic material found an alternative pathway that Valtherian genetics could not access. It is actually quite elegant from a scientific perspective." "Is the baby healthy?" Taeyang asked, his voice shaking. "Will Aranel be okay?" "All the signs are good," Heejin assured him. "But this is unprecedented. I want to monitor you closely, Aranel. We have no idea what to expect from a human-Valtherian hybrid pregnancy." News of the pregnancy spread quickly through the station. Every human on Sejong congratulated the couple with genuine joy. Even the Valtherian diplomats stationed there seemed shocked but pleased. But when the news reached Valteria Prime, it caused chaos. Lord Vexmar stood before the council, his face twisted with anger and disbelief. "This must be some kind of trick," he insisted. "The princess is playing a game. Perhaps she found a Valtherian male somewhere and is pretending the child is the humans. Genetic tests confirm the child has both human and Valtherian DNA," another council member said, reading the report. "This is real, Vexmar. The impossible has happened." "Impossible is correct," Vexmar shouted. "The best doctors in the Empire failed to cure her infertility. These primitive humans with their crude medicine somehow succeeded? I do not believe it." But across the galaxy, the scientific community was buzzing with excitement. Papers were written about human genetic adaptability. Researchers requested access to the medical data. Universities wanted to study this unprecedented case. Humanity went from being seen as a primitive curiosity to being recognized as something unique in the galaxy. No other species had this level of genetic compatibility with others. It made humans valuable in ways no one had predicted. Meanwhile, Lord Vexmar sent an official demand to Station Sejong. Princess Aranel must return to Valteria Prime immediately for examination and proper prenatal care. The child was of royal blood and belonged to the Empire. When Aranel read the message, she felt sick again. This time it was not from pregnancy. It was from fear. "They want to take me back," she told Taeyang, her voice trembling. "They want to take our child." "They cannot force you," Taeyang said firmly. "You are an adult. You can make your own choices." "You do not understand," Aranel said desperately. "In Valtherian law, royal children belong to the Empire first and their parents second. If the council demands I return, I have to obey." "Even if you are married to a human?" Taeyang asked. "Even if you do not want to go?" "Especially then," Aranel said. "They will use any excuse to take control. They want this child, Taeyang. They want to study how it was possible. They want to own this miracle that they never believed could happen." Dr. Heejin entered their quarters looking worried. Ambassador Suyuk just received an official communication from the Valtherian Empire. They are sending a ship to retrieve Aranel. It arrives in 4 days. Can Earth refuse them? Taeyang asked. It is complicated, Heejin said. Aranel is still technically Valtherian royalty. Earth does not want to cause a diplomatic incident. What about what Aranel wants? Taeyang's voice rose with anger. Does that not matter? It should, Heejin said quietly. But politics is complicated. That night, Aranel could not sleep. She lay in bed next to Taeyang, one hand resting on her still flat stomach. Inside her, a tiny life was growing. Her child, their child, the miracle she never thought possible. She had been so happy these past months. Happy in a way she never imagined she could be. And now it was all falling apart. What if they take the baby away from me? She whispered in the darkness. What if they decide I am not fit to be a mother? What if they use our child for political purposes? I will not let that happen, Taeyang said fiercely. I swear to you, Aranel, I will protect you and our baby. How? Aranel asked. You are one human. They are a galactic empire. Then I will find a way, Taeyang said. Humans are good at finding solutions to impossible problems. It is one of our best traits. The next morning, Ambassador Suhyuk called an emergency meeting. Aranel and Taeyang sat across from him in the conference room. I have been in communication with Earth's government, Suhyuk said. The situation is delicate. The Valtherians are demanding Aranel's return. They say it is for her health and the baby's safety. That is a lie, Aranel said bitterly. They want control. They want to study what happened and use it for their own purposes. I believe you, Suhyuk said, and so does Earth's government. We are prepared to support your choice, whatever it is. If you want to stay here, we will stand by you. Really? Aranel looked at him with surprise. Yes, Suhyuk nodded. But you need to understand what that means. The Valtherians will see it as a diplomatic insult. Relations between Earth and the Valtherian Empire will suffer. Is that worth it? Aranel asked quietly. Is my happiness worth potentially harming relations between our species? Suhyuk smiled gently. Princess, humanity did not come to the stars just to bow to more powerful empires. We came to build real connections with other species. Real friendships. Real families. You and Taeyang represent everything we hope to achieve. Your child will be the first human Valtherian hybrid in history. That matters more than politics. Tears filled Aranel's eyes again. Thank you, she whispered. However, Suhyuk continued, I must be honest. The Valtherians are much more powerful than us. If they really want to take you by force, we cannot stop them militarily. Then what do we do? Taeyang asked. We make this public, Suhyuk said. We tell the whole galaxy what is happening. We show everyone that a miracle occurred here. We show that love and science combined to create something impossible. We make it very difficult for the Valtherians to simply take you away without looking like villains. It was a risky plan, but it was the only plan they had. That afternoon, Aranel stood before a camera. Her message would be broadcast across the entire galactic network. She was terrified, but Taeyang stood beside her, holding her hand. She spoke clearly and honestly. She told her story. How she was sent to the humans as a joke. How she found love instead. How human science succeeded where Valtherian medicine failed. How she was now carrying a child that everyone said was impossible. I am asking the galaxy to witness what happens next, she said, looking directly into the camera. I am asking you all to remember that this child was created from love, not politics. And I am asking the Valtherian Council to let me make my own choices about my life and my baby's future. The message spread like fire across the stars. Within hours, billions of beings across hundreds of worlds had seen it. Responses poured in from everywhere. Some supported Aranel, some condemned her. But everyone was watching. The Valtherian ship was still coming. In 3 days, Aranel would have to make a choice. Stay and risk everything, or return to Valteria and lose control of her own life. She placed her hand on her stomach again. Inside, her baby grew. Her miracle. Her proof that she was never broken. Just waiting for the right person to prove everyone wrong. She looked at Taeyang and made her choice. 1 year had passed since that tense confrontation with the Valtherian Council. The crisis had been resolved through careful diplomacy and the overwhelming support of the galactic community. Aranel had chosen to stay on Station Sejong, and the Valtherians had reluctantly agreed. The alternative would have made them look like tyrants in front of billions of watching eyes. Now Aranel stood in the nursery, looking down at her sleeping daughter. Hana was 6 months old. She had her mother's silver skin, but softer, with a glow that shifted between silver and the warm tan of her father's complexion. Her hair was black like Taeyang's, but it shimmered with hints of white in certain lights. When she opened her eyes, they were purple like Aranel's, but shaped like Taeyang's. She was the most beautiful thing Aranel had ever seen. Is she asleep? Taeyang whispered from the doorway. Finally, Aranel said with a tired smile. She wanted to play for another hour. Taeyang wrapped his arms around his wife from behind. They both looked down at their miracle child. I still cannot believe she is real sometimes, he said softly. I know, Aranel agreed. Every morning I wake up afraid this is all a dream. Hana's birth had been the happiest day of Aranel's life. The delivery had been difficult. Human-Valtharian hybrid pregnancy was new territory, and Dr. He-jin had to invent solutions as problems appeared. But Hana was born healthy and perfect. News of her birth spread across the galaxy even faster than the announcement of the pregnancy. She was a symbol now, proof that different species could come together and create something new, something beautiful. But with that fame came complications. We received another message from your mother today, Taeyang said carefully. Aranel stiffened. What did she say? She wants to meet Hana, Taeyang said. She is asking us to come to Valteria Prime. She promises safe passage and says Lord Vexmar has been removed from power. Aranel had been avoiding this conversation for months. Queen Lysara had been sending messages regularly since Hana's birth. Each one was more emotional than the last. The queen wanted to see her granddaughter. She wanted to apologize to Aranel for not protecting her better. I do not know if I can go back there, Aranel said quietly. That place holds so much pain for me. I understand, Taeyang said. But maybe it is time to face that pain. Your mother sounds genuine, and Hana deserves to know her grandmother. What if it is a trap? Aranel asked. What if they try to take Hana away from us? Then we fight, Taeyang said firmly. But we will not go alone. Ambassador Suhyuk has offered to come with us. So has Dr. He-jin. And Earth is sending a security team. Aranel looked down at her sleeping daughter again. Hana stirred slightly, making a small sound. Even in sleep, she was beautiful. All right, Aranel said finally. We will go, but only for a short visit. And if anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. 3 weeks later, a human ship approached Valteria Prime. It was smaller than the massive Valtharian cruisers that filled the space around the planet, but it carried precious cargo. Inside, Aranel stood at the window holding Hana in her arms. The baby looked out at the silver planet with wide, curious eyes. That is where your mother was born, Aranel whispered to her daughter. It is beautiful, but it was not always kind to me. Taeyang stood beside them, tense and alert. He wore formal clothes for the diplomatic visit, but he felt like a fish out of water. They were about to meet a queen. Aranel's mother, his mother-in-law. The thought made him nervous. The ship docked at the royal palace. When the doors opened, Aranel took a deep breath and stepped out. The crowd waiting for them was enormous. Thousands of Valtharians had gathered to catch a glimpse of the princess who returned. But more than that, they wanted to see the baby, the impossible child. Queen Lysara stood at the front of the crowd. She was tall and elegant, looking like an older version of Aranel, but her face was not cold like the last time Aranel had seen her. She was crying. My daughter, the queen said, her voice breaking. You came home. Hello, mother, Aranel said formally. She held Hana protectively. Lysara's eyes fixed on the baby. Fresh tears spilled down her silver cheeks. May I see her? Aranel hesitated, then stepped forward. Mother, this is Hana. Hana, this is your grandmother. The queen reached out with shaking hands. When Aranel placed Hana in her arms, Lysara sobbed openly. She is beautiful, she whispered. She is perfect. Oh, my precious granddaughter. Hana, instead of crying at the stranger, reached up and touched the queen's face curiously. She made a happy babbling sound. She looks like both of you, Lysara said, looking at Taeyang for the first time. You must be my son-in-law. Taeyang bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I am honored to meet you. The honor is mine, Lysara said. You did something our best doctors could not do. You made my daughter happy. You gave her a child. You gave me a grandchild. The queen arranged a private family dinner that evening. Just her, Aranel, Taeyang, and baby Hana. No guards, no advisors, just family. I owe you an apology, Lysara said once they were alone. I failed you as a mother, Aranel. When you needed me to stand up for you, I stayed silent. I let the council treat you terribly. I let Vexmar mock you and use you for his political games. Why did you not say anything? Aranel asked. The question had haunted her for years. Because I was a coward, Lysara admitted. I struggled with infertility too before you were born. The doctors tried for 15 years before I finally conceived. Those years were torture. Every month that passed, I felt more worthless. I let that pain control me. When you face the same problem, I could not bear to face it again. You never told me that, Aranel said softly. I should have, Lysara said. If I had told you my story, maybe you would not have felt so alone. Maybe you would have known that infertility does not make you worthless. I know that now, Aranel said, looking at Taeyang. My husband taught me. They talked late into the night. Lysara told stories about Aranel's childhood. Taeyang shared stories about how he and Aranel met. Hana dozed in her mother's arms, occasionally waking to look around with curious eyes. But not everyone on Valteria Prime was happy about the royal reunion. In the shadows, Lord Vexmar's supporters plotted. They saw Hana as an abomination, a mixing of pure Valtherian blood with primitive human genetics. They could not allow this to stand. On the third day of the visit, the council arranged a formal public appearance. Aranel would present her daughter to the Valtherian people. It was supposed to be a celebration. The royal hall was packed with nobles, diplomats, and citizens who had won the lottery to attend. Aranel wore traditional Valtherian royal robes. Taeyang wore a mixture of human and Valtherian formal wear. Hana wore a tiny dress that sparkled like starlight. Queen Lysara stood at the center of the raised platform. She began to speak. People of Valteria, she said. Today I present to you Princess Aranel, my daughter, who has returned from the stars. And I present her daughter, Princess Hanariel, called Hana by humans. She is the first of a new generation, the first child born from the union of Valtherian and human. The crowd murmured, some in wonder, some in anger. Then Lord Vexmar stood up from where he sat among the nobles. Despite being removed from his official position, he still commanded respect from many traditional Valtherians. This is wrong, he shouted. This child is a corruption of our bloodline. The princess was sent to the humans as a joke, and she took it seriously. She has betrayed her heritage. Gasps filled the room. Aranel felt anger burn hot in her chest. Taeyang moved to stand beside her, his hand finding hers. But before anyone else could speak, Queen Lysara's voice rang out cold and hard. Lord Vexmar, she said, you stand accused of conspiracy, abuse of power, and bringing shame to the royal family. Guards, arrest him. Vexmar's face went pale as royal guards surrounded him. What, you cannot do this. You are nothing, Lysara said sharply. We have evidence that you orchestrated my daughter's diplomatic marriage as a cruel joke. We have records of your communications mocking both her and humanity. We have proof that you violated diplomatic protocols for your own amusement. She turned to address the crowd. This council, with my support, sent my daughter to the humans expecting her to fail, expecting to mock her and them. Instead, she found love. She found happiness. And yes, she found the miracle of motherhood that we denied her. Lysara's voice grew stronger. The humans succeeded where we failed, not because their technology is better, but because they saw my daughter as a person, not as a breeding tool. They valued her mind, her heart, her soul, and in doing so they unlocked what we could not. She held up her hand and Aranel came forward with Hana. The baby looked around at all the people with wide, curious eyes. This child is not a corruption, Lysara declared. She is hope. She is proof that we can learn from others, that we can grow beyond our limitations, that love and science together can create miracles. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some protested. But most just stared in wonder at the baby with silver skin and black hair, who represented something entirely new. Aranel held her daughter close and felt Taeyang's supportive presence beside her. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Their family was under attack, but they were not backing down. The Valtherian Grand Court was a massive chamber carved from crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. Thousands could fit inside, and today it was filled to capacity. This was not just a trial. It was a spectacle being broadcast across the entire Valtherian Empire and beyond to the whole galaxy. Aranel sat at the defendant's table with Taeyang beside her. Hana was with Dr. Hyejin in a private room nearby. The baby was too young to understand what was happening, but Aranel wanted her far from this hostile environment. Across from them sat Lord Vexmar and his supporters. Even arrested and disgraced, he had managed to turn this into a counter-trial. He was not just defending himself. He was accusing Aranel of betraying her people. The head judge, an ancient Valtherian named Elder Koth, called the court to order. His voice echoed through the chamber. This court will determine the truth of several matters, he announced. First, Did Lord Vexmar abuse his power in arranging Princess Aranel's diplomatic marriage? Second, is the child Hanariel legitimate and worthy of royal recognition? Third, did Princess Aranel betray her people by marrying a human? Vexmar stood to speak first. He had always been good at manipulating crowds. Honored judges, people of Valteria, he began, his voice smooth and confident. I admit that the princess's marriage was arranged for political purposes. But that is what royal marriages are. They serve the empire, not personal desires. He gestured dramatically toward Aranel. The princess was infertile. She had no value to our bloodlines. Rather than let her waste away in shame, we gave her a chance to serve the empire through diplomacy. We honored the humans with a royal match. Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the crowd. But what did the princess do? Vexmar continued, his voice rising. She took this diplomatic arrangement and turned it into something personal. She fell in love with a human. She bred with a human. She produced a half-blood child and now parades it as if it were pure Valtherian royalty. The child is an abomination, someone shouted from the crowd. Order, Elder Koth demanded, but the damage was done. The crowd was getting riled up. Aranel felt Taeyang's hand squeeze hers under the table. She wanted to stand up and scream at them all, to tell them how much their cruelty had hurt her. But she stayed calm. She had to. Then it was her turn to speak. Aranel stood, her legs shaking slightly. Public speaking had never been her strength. But she thought of Hana sleeping peacefully in the other room. She thought of everything she and Taeyang had built together. That gave her courage. Lord Vexmar speaks of honor and diplomacy, she began, her voice quiet but clear. Let me tell you the truth about honor. She looked directly at Vexmar. You sent me to the humans as a joke. I have proof. A court recorder named Daiho recovered your private communications. Shall I read them aloud? Vexmar's face paled slightly. Aranel pulled out a datapad. Quote, let us send the broken princess to the primitive humans. When she fails to breed even with them, everyone will know she is truly worthless. End quote. Those are your words, Lord Vexmar. Your own words admit this was mockery, not diplomacy. Gasps filled the court. Elder Koth leaned forward with interest. Is this communication verified? He asked. A young human stepped forward from the crowd. It was Daiho, the translator who had worked in the Valtherian diplomatic corps. He bowed nervously. It is verified, Your Honor, Daiho said. I retrieved it from encrypted council files. The authentication codes confirm it came from Lord Vexmar's personal terminal. The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Some were angry at Vexmar for his cruelty. Others were angry at Aranel for exposing internal council business. Elder Koth had to call for order repeatedly. When quiet finally returned, Aranel continued speaking. You call me a traitor for loving a human, she said. But what crime is love? Taeyang treated me with more kindness in one day than I received from my own people in years. He saw me as a person, not as a failed breeding tool. Her voice grew stronger. You say my daughter is an abomination. Let me tell you about her. She is healthy. She is intelligent. She already shows signs of having both Valtherian mental abilities and human emotional depth. She is not a corruption. She is evolution. Aranel looked around at the crowd. How many of you secretly struggle with infertility? How many of you have family members who cannot conceive? Our genetic stability makes us strong, but it also makes us fragile. Our population grows slowly. Our genetics barely change. She pointed to where Dr. Heejin sat in the observers section. Dr. Heejin, please explain what you discovered. Heejin stood looking nervous but determined. Human genetics are more adaptable than any species we have studied, she explained in fluent Valtherian. This adaptability is not weakness. It is strength. When human and Valtherian genetics combined in Princess Aranel's womb, the human adaptive proteins bypassed the genetic lock that caused her infertility. In simple terms, Heejin continued, humans can help other species overcome genetic problems that their own medicine cannot solve. This is not just about Princess Aranel. This discovery could help thousands of Valtherians who struggle with infertility. The crowd was silent now, listening intently. Taeyang stood up to speak next. Aranel had been worried about this part. Her husband was not a politician or a diplomat. He was just an engineer. But Ambassador Suhyuk had insisted that the human perspective needed to be heard. Honored judges, people of Valteria, Taeyang began. His Valtherian was heavily accented but understandable. I am just a simple man. I fix machines. I solve problems. I build bridges. When I met RNL, I saw a person in pain. I saw someone who needed a friend. He looked at RNL with such love that many in the crowd felt it. I did not fall in love with her because she was a princess. I did not marry her for politics. I loved her because of who she is. Her intelligence, her kindness, her strength. You judge people by their ability to have children, Taeyang continued. Humans judge people by their actions. My sister chose never to have children. She is still valuable. She still contributes to society. She still lives a good life. He gestured to where Hana was being brought into the courtroom by a guard. The baby had woken up and was looking around curiously at all the strange faces. My daughter is not an abomination, Taeyang said firmly. She is a miracle. She is proof that different people can come together and create something beautiful. She is proof that love is stronger than hate. As if responding to her father's words, baby Hana reached out toward him and made a happy sound. The pure innocence of the gesture touched something in the crowd. Many Valtherians began to look uncomfortable. This was not a monster they were judging. This was a baby. Then Queen Lizara stood to speak. As the ruling monarch, her testimony carried enormous weight. I owe this court a confession, Lizara said. I too struggled with infertility. For 15 years I tried to conceive. Every Valtherian doctor failed to help me. Every treatment failed. I felt worthless, just as my daughter later felt. The crowd was shocked. This was not public knowledge. When I finally conceived RNL, Lizara continued, I thought my struggle was over. But then my daughter faced the same curse. And I said nothing. I did nothing. I let her suffer alone because I was too ashamed to admit my own past. Tears ran down the queen's silver face. Lord Vexmar used my daughter's pain as a weapon. He made her suffering into a political tool. And I allowed it because I was a coward. She walked over to where RNL sat and took her daughter's hands. I failed you as a mother, but you succeeded where I failed. You found your own path. You found love and happiness, and yes, you found a way to have a child. Lizara turned back to the court. Lord Vexmar asks if my granddaughter is legitimate. I say she is more than legitimate. She is hope. She represents a future where we are not limited by our genetic weaknesses, where we can learn from other species instead of looking down on them. And if accepting that future means accepting humans into our bloodlines, then so be it, Lizara declared. My granddaughter will be recognized as royal. She will inherit her mother's position, and anyone who has a problem with that can answer to me personally. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Supporters and opponents shouted at each other. Guards had to separate people who started fighting. In the middle of the chaos, baby Hana started crying, frightened by all the noise. RNL took her daughter from the guard and held her close, rocking her gently. Taeyang wrapped his arms around both of them protectively. Elder Koth called for order repeatedly. Finally, security began removing the most disruptive people from the courtroom. This court will recess, Elder Koth announced. We will return in 3 hours with our judgment. Those 3 hours were the longest of RNL's life. She sat in a private room with Taeyang, Hana, Hyejin, and her mother. No one spoke much. They were all too nervous. When they returned to the courtroom, the crowd was quieter but still tense. Everyone knew this decision would change Valtherian society forever. Elder Koth stood to deliver the verdict. His ancient face showed no emotion. This court finds Lord Vexmar guilty of abuse of power and conspiracy to harm a member of the royal family, he announced. He is hereby stripped of all titles and exiled from Valteria Prime. Vexmar shouted in protest, but guards dragged him away. Regarding Princess RNL and her daughter, Elder Koth continued. This court finds no betrayal of Valtherian. 5 years had passed since the trial. RNL stood on the balcony of their home on New Haven, a planet jointly colonized by humans and Valtherians. It was morning, and the sun was rising over the crystal forests that the Valtherians had planted alongside earth trees that humans had brought from home. Mama, a voice called from inside. Minho took my toy. Did not, another voice protested. RNL smiled and went back inside. Her daughter, Hana, now 5 years old, stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at her 3-year-old brother, Minho. The boy clutched a small spaceship toy that both children loved to fight over. Minho, give your sister the toy, RNL said gently. You can play with it after she is done. But I had it first today. Minho protested. He had inherited his father's stubbornness along with his dark hair and warm eyes. His skin was a beautiful mix of silver and tan that seemed to glow in certain lights. How about you both play together? Taeyang suggested, emerging from the kitchen with breakfast. The spaceship needs a pilot and a navigator. The children considered this, then nodded and ran off to play together. Their argument was already forgotten. Taeyang kissed his wife's cheek as he set down plates of food. Good morning. How did you sleep? Restlessly, Aranel admitted, placing a hand on her rounded belly. She was 6 months pregnant with their third child. This one likes to kick at night. Just like her mother, Taeyang teased. Strong and determined. We do not know if it is a girl yet, Aranel reminded him. I have a feeling, Taeyang said with a smile. They ate breakfast together as a family, the children chattering about their plans for the day. Hana wanted to visit the research center where Aranel worked. Minho wanted to help Taeyang fix the garden irrigation system. After breakfast, Aranel walked to work through streets filled with both humans and Valtherians. Children of both species played together. Mixed couples walked hand in hand. What had once been impossible was now normal. The research center was a beautiful building that combined Valtherian crystal architecture with human steel and glass. Inside, scientists from dozens of species worked together on projects that benefited the entire galaxy. Dr. Hyejin met Aranel at the door. She had moved to New Haven permanently to continue her groundbreaking research. Morning, Hyejin said cheerfully. Ready to change the galaxy again today? Always, Aranel laughed. They walked to the genetics lab together. On the walls were pictures documenting their achievements over the past 5 years. Human Valtherian hybrid children were no longer rare. Thousands had been born. But it went beyond just their 2 species. The adaptive properties of human genetics had helped 17 other alien species overcome their own reproductive problems. Populations that had been slowly dying were now growing again. Species that had been on the verge of extinction now had hope. The Kovari delegation arrives tomorrow, Hyejin reminded Aranel. They want to discuss establishing a similar program for their people. How many is that now? Aranel asked. 23 species have requested our help, Hyejin said. Can you believe it? 5 years ago, humans were seen as primitives. Now everyone wants to work with them. Not everyone, Aranel said quietly. There are still those who resist. It was true. Not all Valtherians had accepted the changes. Small groups still protested against mixed unions. They called themselves purists and claimed that Valtherian blood should remain pure. Similar groups existed among humans too, people who feared that interbreeding would erase human identity. But they were the minority. Most people had seen the benefits of cooperation and accepted it. That afternoon, Aranel received a message from Earth. Her sister-in-law Minji wanted to visit with exciting news. When Minji arrived a week later, she was carrying adoption papers. I'm adopting a Valtherian child, she announced happily. A little girl whose parents died in a shuttle accident. Her name is Seol. Aranel hugged her sister-in-law warmly. That is wonderful. Hana and Minho will love having a cousin. I know I always said I did not want children, Minji explained. But after seeing what you and Taeyang built, after seeing these beautiful mixed families, I realized I wanted to be part of it. Just in my own way. That evening, they had a family dinner. Aranel's mother, Queen Lisara, joined them via hologram from Valteria Prime. Ambassador Suyuk visited in person. Dr. Hyejin came with her new girlfriend, a Valtherian engineer. The house was full of laughter and love. Hana showed her grandmother a picture she had drawn. It showed humans and Valtherians holding hands under a rainbow. This is beautiful, my precious one, Lisara said warmly. What does it mean? It means we are all friends now, Hana explained simply. Teacher says that before I was born, humans and Valtherians did not know each other well. But now we are family. Yes, we are, Lisara agreed, her voice thick with emotion. You and your brother and the baby in your mama's belly are the reason why. You showed everyone that we can be family. After dinner, Aranel tucked her children into bed. She read them a story about the early days of human space exploration, when humans first reached out to the stars, not knowing what they would find. Mama? Hana asked sleepily. Is it true that some people did not want you to marry Papa? Aranel paused. Her children knew simplified versions of her story, but she had not told them everything yet. They were still young. Yes, that is true, she said honestly. Some people thought humans and Valtherians were too different to be together. But they were wrong, Hannah said confidently. Papa is the best papa ever. Yes, they were very wrong, Aranel agreed, kissing her daughter's forehead. In their bedroom later, Aranel and Taeyang lay together in the darkness. His hand rested on her pregnant belly, feeling their child move. Do you ever regret it? Aranel asked quietly. Your life would have been simpler if you had refused that diplomatic marriage. Simpler? Taeyang laughed softly. Maybe, but also emptier, Aranel. You and our children are the best thing that ever happened to me. I would not change a single moment. Even the trial? Aranel asked. Even when people threatened us? Even then, Taeyang said firmly. Because all of that led us here. To this home, this family, this life, we proved that love is stronger than prejudice. We proved that different people can build something beautiful together. We changed the galaxy, Aranel said, still amazed by that fact. No, Taeyang corrected gently. Hannah changed the galaxy. She was the proof everyone needed. One perfect little girl who showed that hybrid children are not abominations or corruptions. They are just children. They are hope. Aranel thought about her daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room. Hannah, who played with both human and Valtherian friends without seeing any difference. Hannah, who spoke both languages fluently. Hannah, who had her mother's intelligence and her father's kindness. She thought about Minho, who was so full of energy and curiosity. Who wanted to be an engineer like his papa. Who asked 1,000 questions about how everything worked. She thought about the baby growing inside her. Another child who would be born into this new era. Another bridge between species. Another symbol of hope. Do you remember what you said to me the first time we talked? Aranel asked. When I told you I was infertile. I said that your worth had nothing to do with your ability to have children, Taeyang recalled. You were right, Aranel said. But you were also wrong. Because having children with you became the greatest joy of my life. Not because it proved I was not broken, but because I got to create life with the person I love. I got to bring Hannah and Minho and this new baby into the world. I understand, Taeyang said. Children are not necessary for worth, but they are still a wonderful gift when they come. 6 months later, their third child was born, a daughter, just as Taeyang had predicted. They named her Narai, which meant wings in Korean. She would fly higher than anyone expected, just like her older sister had. 10 years after that, Hannah graduated from the Galactic Academy with honors in both xenobiology and diplomacy. She had decided to follow in her parents' footsteps, building bridges between species. At her graduation, Hannah gave a speech to students from 40 different worlds. I am human, she said. I am Valtherian. I am both and I am neither. I am something new. All of us hybrid children are something new. We are proof that species boundaries are not walls. They are opportunities. My mother was sent to my father as a joke, Hannah continued. The powerful people who arranged their marriage thought they were being clever. They thought they were mocking both species. Instead, they created something amazing. Because humans are not primitive, Hannah said firmly. Humans are adaptable. They are emotionally intelligent. They are genetically flexible. These things that other species saw as weaknesses turned out to be humanity's greatest strengths. And Valtherians are not cold or rigid, she continued. They are stable, strong, and wise. They have knowledge and culture that spans thousands of years. When you combine human adaptability with Valtherian stability, you get something incredible, Hannah concluded. You get people like me. People like the thousands of other hybrid children across the galaxy. People who can build the future. The crowd erupted in applause. In the audience, Aranel cried tears of pride. Taeyang held her hand and